Hey guys, Ryan here from Wired to Fish, and today we want to go through a setup of MEGA 360 imaging for ice fishing. It's a cool new application for a proven technology that many of you are probably aware of for open water applications. MEGA 360 is exactly that. It gives you a 360-degree image around your boat to read structure and mark fish. And now that we have that on ice, there's a few specific things that we need to get operational. I'm gonna spare you guys the unboxings, but I do wanna go through all of the equipment involved. So what I have here is a brand new MEGA 360 imaging unit, and the ice packs are compatible with any 360 imaging out there, regardless of the trolling motor. So keep that in mind. For the sake of this demonstration, here's a brand new one in the package. Next is a head unit. So you're gonna need the right Humminbird HELIX head unit to talk to 360 imaging. The compatible units are the HELIX 8, a HELIX 9, or a HELIX 10, G3, so generation 3 or newer, and it needs to either have side imaging plus or DI plus to display the 360 image. Next is the ice portable conversion kit. You're gonna mount your head unit to this, and this just gives you the portability on the ice. Moving along here, the MEGA 360 ice adapter. This is a pretty important piece of equipment here because this is how you configure this transducer for ice portability, scanning in your hole, adjusting depth of the transducer in the hole, and determining the heading or the azimuth that the fish are located if you have the right accessory. And the two optional accessories are a Y cable and a precision antenna. I'm gonna start with the Y cable. This allows you to display both the MEGA 360 imaging as well as 2D sonar onto your head unit. And that's the potent 1-2 punch. You want to go use 360 imaging to really lay out the structure around you and mark fish, drop a waypoint on them, and then get over the top of the fish with your conventional 2D sonar, and that's where you catch them. And then the precision antenna, much like in a boat, we're going to mount this to the MEGA 360 ice adapter, and that allows us to get a lineup on where we're marking the fish, go drop a waypoint on the actual 360 image itself, which will then display on our chart. It's kind of a X marks the spot scenario. This is a useful tool, and I'd recommend both of these options to really maximize the full capability of this setup. We're not gonna go into a detailed unboxing on all the products, but I do wanna give you guys a look at what is actually in this 360 box, because this is the main piece of equipment that we're talking about here today. So you can see here is the 360 transducer protected in some high density foam. So there's the shaft. I'm gonna just lay that down here. Here is a cable. We'll talk about that in a little bit. And then I also have another little box here with some additional cabling, manual, basically a power cable and a transducer cable to connect to the head unit. The beauty of this whole setup is you can take this into your boat, and we've done a pretty cool video on converting your HELIX for ice fishing between open water use and ice fishing and vice versa. So it's a good value proposition. One unit can service both your open water and ice fishing needs. There's a fair bit of components here with this ice conversion kit, so I do like opening up the manual, just going through, identify what hardware requirements are, some basic tools as well. You're gonna need to purchase a 12-volt battery separately. All right guys, we got our ice portable conversion kit set up. We got the head unit mounted on there. We threw a 12-volt battery there. We're gonna slide that off to the side, and we're gonna move on to the MEGA 360 ice adapter. That's what's gonna attach directly to the 360 transducer. And once we do that, then we'll get into the cabling and the connections to the head unit here. So, all right, there's my handle. 9-inch plate, and this is a required piece of equipment. This is not one of the optional accessories. And according to the installation guide here, the first thing I want to do is slide one of the locking collars on, and that's going to happen down here on this cable end. Slide these two cables through, open it up, and slide it onto the shaft of the 360 imaging unit. I'm going to go ahead and just lock that. Next, I'm going to take the 9-inch base, and this is ambidextrous, so I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to go down here, slide both of those plugs through, route it through the cabling, and then down the shaft of the MEGA 360. And then I'm just going to follow that up with the other collar here. Open it up, slide it down. There we go. We have our base in place. Next step is vertically adjust the height of the ice adapter base to the desired position. So that's a little arbitrary for this setup, but I'm just going to go roughly center shaft height here. And then next will just be the handle. Lefty-loosey to loosen it up, slide it onto the pod shaft. So that completes the installation of the ice adapter. So now we have the 360 configured on our ice adapter. I'm going to move on to one of the accessory items, and it's one that I strongly recommend, and that is a GPS receiver. And we're going to mount that right onto this 9-inch plate. What that's going to allow us to do is to be able to go use 360, cursor over, and drop waypoints on fish. It could be structure, it could be cover like a brush pile that happens to be holding the fish, and that'll give me an accurate waypoint on my chart. I'll also have the ability to go line up direction to where those fish are exactly to help direct a buddy over that location to go drill a hole and go catch fish. So let's go ahead and open this up and get it mounted. Another installation guide there. You get plenty of cable. This is what you would have rigged in your boat. The important thing to note here is that there's a slot on the bottom where the power cable for the antenna goes into. You want to make sure the cable is in there so it doesn't get pinched, and that allows for a good, clean, flush mount. The other thing to note is that there's an arrow here. That needs to be pointing in an outward direction, so as you turn the 360 mount, where that's pointing is the direction where things are located that you're seeing on the 360 image. So go ahead and insert your screws into the precision antenna. Again, with your cable in the slot, line it up. Antenna is mounted. Next phase is going to be connecting the 360 and the precision antenna to the head unit. And lastly is a MEGA 360 Y cable. And this is going to allow me to connect both the 2D transducer as well as the 360 transducer so I can get both readouts on here. So the MEGA 360 Y cable consists of a Y end and then a single end. On the single end I have a female connector that's going to connect to the end of the 360 pod. The opposite side is the Y side. I have a power cable and I have a transducer cable. All right guys, you may notice there's some changes to the configuration from the last shot. We actually got out on the ice with the product and made a few changes to our connections as well as cable management. I'm gonna go through those things, but I'll pick up on where we left off, and that was with the Y cable. We have our bundle here and we have the Y cable connected to the end of the transducer pod. And then at the female side of the Y cable, we actually have the transducer from the HELIX plugged in here. And then here is the other side of the Y cable, which will plug directly into the back of the head unit. And what that simply allows us to do is have both a transducer from the 360 pod as well as a 2D chirp transducer plugged in. Now, at Wire to Fish, we use this as a dedicated 360 unit, but I do want to make mention that with the Y cable, you can have this set up for dual use, both as a 360 unit for locating fish, and then to drop it down the hole and use it as an ice fishing fish finder. So I'm going to go ahead and plug in my Y cable. Now I have dual transducer functionality, and then my precision antenna cable, I'm going to plug that in separately as well. And again, that's so that we have accurate GPS coordinates when we go drop waypoints off the 360 screen. So this is a pretty big bundle here, and I have 3 cables plugged into the back. What I don't want to happen is this gets pulled on and then jerks the cables off the back of the head unit. So we just use a piece of Velcro. You could use zip ties as well. So what we've been doing is just folding that up like this with a little bit of loop, so that we're not putting direct stress on the cables that are plugged into the HELIX. And we can easily undo this if we want to totally disconnect the 360 device and use this as a dedicated ice fishing fish finder. So by using Velcro or zip ties here, and we prefer Velcro so we're not putting excess strain on these cables, you got more surface area here. You can see I'm not unplugging the cables that are plugged into the back of the HELIX, putting undue stress on them. The other thing you'll notice is we actually have a lithium ion in here now. Choose a battery that fits within the battery slot and go with the biggest amp hour you can find to maximize your runtime on the ice. The more amp hours, the longer run time. And one more thing you'll notice here is we actually have a switch installed on the gimbal bracket. What we've done is we've split the power cable, the positive and negative for the actual transducer, and we've brought the positive over to this switch. Now, if you were using this in a dual capacity where we're using 360 and we also want to use our sonar functionality, we may want to just simply turn that switch off and cut power to the 360 unit to conserve on battery power. And that's more of a professional rigging job, not necessary, just something that we chose to do to conserve power on the ice. So when you get all your cables spread out, you're going to be like, whoa, this is a lot of cabling, and it is. This thing is designed to go into your boat. So what we've done is we've doubled up our cables a little bit to make it manageable. So lay it out, pretend you're ice fishing. You may have this outside of a portable fish house and want a good 5 to 8 feet. Just kind of give yourself how much you need for your particular fishing style. And that's what we've done. We have roughly 8 feet here, and we've simply doubled up the cables based on that, used electrical tape. Again, we prefer the electrical tape over zip ties, so we're not cracking the cables. You have more surface area with that electrical tape, as well as this nylon sleeve. When you slide it back over, the end of the zip ties are likely to catch on it. And then to bundle the cabling up, we've just used 3/4 inch nylon sleeve here. And then you can slide it over that cable bundle all the way down. It compresses nice, it expands nicely, and keeps your cables neatly managed as well as protected on the ice. And we're impressed with the portability with it. I mean, it looks like a lot, but hey, this is pretty manageable to go deploy on the hole with the cables. Be conscientious about how you transport your 360 device on the ice. I happen to have an ATV that's rigged with 2 Railblaza star ports, and I have 2 Railblaza G-holds, size 35, that insert into it, and that allows the whole transducer shaft to be horizontally mounted and that transducer free and clear from anything. Some guys are taking the head protectors for their Gulf drivers, and you can slide that over there, and I've heard of some people repurposing the foam that comes wrapped around the transducer in the original box, so you may want to keep that as well. I want to make note of a few things as it relates to the transducer and the shaft and that precision antenna, and this is going to be really important for on-ice applications, particularly with regard to knowing where fish are at in relation to what you're seeing on the screen, so you can direct fishermen over to that spot as well as drop accurate waypoints. So as we saw earlier in our setup, we have this plate here that rests on the ice, and we have our precision antenna mounted to it. And we have our actual 360 transducer here. If you take a look at that, you'll see the teardrop shape. This side is your forward-looking portion of the transducer. So where that's pointed is your 12 o'clock basically. I want my precision antenna aligned with the arrow on top with the transducer. Out of the package, this plate spins. You're going to want to fix that plate, and we did a little custom modification with the cotter pin in the back here. And again, I'm treating the 360 like I would in the boat. Here's my screen, perpendicular to where I'm looking. Here's my 12 o'clock or north. My arrow on the precision antenna is 12 o'clock or north. And that gives me a good compass rose, or a clock if you will. 12 o'clock, 3 o'clock, directly behind me 6 o'clock, 9 o'clock, etc. So when I see fish over at that direction, or when I see fish at 270 degrees, okay, there they are at my 9 o'clock, go there. I also have my range rings on my screen. You're putting people on top of where the fish are. We inserted the cotter pin, so the center portion of it goes over the top of the stainless steel fastener here, and we drilled a small hole on the plate so that this end of the cotter pin inserts into that small hole. Additionally, we put a little notch on the back of this plate. The last step is to align the back side of that tightener sleeve with that remaining piece of cotter pin down there, and then sandwich it as tight as you can and close it. And as you can see here, I've fixed the position, and that's so we can accurately direct people to where the fish are. Simple modification. I've seen other systems out there as well, but this was a relatively simplistic and clean one for us. You also might ask, this is a 9-inch plate, what do I do if I run a 10-inch auger? Now the 9-inch plate is great for portability. We do a lot of pan fishing and walleye fishing out of 6, 7, and 8-inch holes, so we're covered with this. But if you do run a 10-inch auger, a simple solution would be maybe getting the top of a 5-gallon bucket, simply cutting a notch with a chop saw to the center and drilling out the middle portion to this diameter and sliding it on top here, and then just putting that, sandwiching that up. That would prevent this from going down the hole. So this is how you adapt an existing 360 off of your boat, or if you buy all the components new at retail. There's a fair amount of steps to this process, so if you're intimidated by any of this, bring it to a professional boat rigger or an electrical shop to give you some assistance. If you're a do-it-yourselfer, the process is fairly straightforward and simplistic as long as you have some basic tools and some knowledge on how 360 works. We've had good success with 360 on ice, but we've been prepared. We got it set up right, we got our cable management in order, and we know how to transport it safely. It's a great tool for finding fish quicker than you normally would by drilling a zillion holes. What we found is you drill a couple holes, you look for fish. If there's no fish in the area, keep moving. Whereas in the past, you might go drill 20, 30 holes on a spot to determine there's no fish in the area. So it's a very powerful tool. Follow some of these tips here and you'll find that it's going to help you get on fish quicker this ice season.